Joining us now is Ovigwe Eguegu, a policy advisor at Development Reimagined. Really good to have you back with us, Ovigwe. These new claims from the Sudan Doctors Network point to the RSF trying to cover up evidence of mass killings in El-Fasher. What does this tell us about the scale and intent of what's happening on the ground right now?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. First and foremost, I think it's important to mention that the reports of possible mass killings and mass graves it doesn't really come as a surprise, because if you've seen the videos of recent, it shows that there's really been a lot of brutality on the part of the RSF against the people in Darfur. However, there needs to be a proper investigation to find out exactly what has happened. And I think that needs to be done as soon as possible, because like the Sudan Doctors Network is reporting, evidence is already being tampered with. If it's true that what they are saying, then the longer it takes, I mean, this is going to be very messy, because then it becomes very questionable, because all evidence have been destroyed. So that's why it's very important for a humanitarian truce to be agreed upon, and those fact-finding missions can take place.
We've heard that people are being targeted based on ethnicity and skin colour, which would be reminiscent of the Darfur genocide 20 years ago. Do you see parallels between what's unfolding today and that earlier campaign of violence? Are we seeing history repeating itself?
In many ways, they're parallels. So one of the key ones is that the RSF itself is actually the Janjaweed, if you go back 20 years, because these are the exact same people who carry out the massacre and mass killings in Darfur. So it's just by a different name. And that's primarily one of the reasons why you have them struggling to get formalized into the army, the Sudanese armed forces. So without that context, I think it's very difficult for people to understand what's happening there, and why the why the SAF, the Sudanese Armed Forces, is very resistant, and some of the main challenges that led to this round of violence that started in April 15, 2023. So there's that, and also the same group of people who perpetuated the violence, they are also the same victims that they are going after in the Darfur region, and that is already been documented even from the very beginning of this episode of the conflict. So I think if the belligerent is the same and the victims are about the same, it is very easy to draw a conclusion that this is a repeat of history.
Now, there's been widespread criticism that the international community has largely turned a blind eye to the atrocities in Darfur. Why do you think there's been so little global response or accountability so far?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would like to say that there's not really been a blind eye. It's just that it is not being given the appropriate attention. The data of people being displaced, the amount of this being the most devastating humanitarian disaster, those data have not really moved the needle in terms of real action. That's not to say they've not been efforts in the past. There have been several ceasefire attempts that have not come to fruition. Maybe they worked for a few hours or a couple of days, and then we're back to square one. So it really has not been a total silence on the part of countries around Sudan, the African Union, or the United Nations. It really has not been that case. What has been the case is that there's not been enough pressure both on the SAF and the RSF, and this to a large extent is because of interest. This conflict in Sudan is one of a very new type of conflict, where it is about the middle power conflict. The middle powers are the ones behind the two sides, and they are slugging it out. And this is really causing devastation. So they are powerful enough to supply weapons and support to the RSF and the SAF, but just not quite not powerful enough to actually elicit the kind of pressure that is needed. So African Union, for instance, has not been able to put pressure on the RSF or even the SAF, neither has IGAD, and even the US and the Quad process, which is ongoing. I think that has really been a failure. It's only picking up steam now because of what we're seeing on the ground.
Okay, Ovigwe Eguegu, we'll have to leave it there. Really good to get your thoughts as always. Thank you.